After adding waypoints in the previous video, we need to create checkpoints. I have already created two scripts that will manage checkpoints easily, so we don't have to add each one manually. To keep things organized, I will create a folder for the checkpoint scripts. First of all, we need to disable the car, since we don't need it for this video. Then, create an empty game object as checkpoints holder. Reset transform. Next, select checkpoints game object, and we need to add a cube which represents first checkpoint. And check is trigger. Now we need to adjust the scale of the cube to 40 on the X and 8 on the Y. To stay organized, we also need to create two folders, one for materials and another for prefabs. Next, create a material for the checkpoint so that it looks different from the waypoints. Set rendering mode to transparent and give it a yellow color. Then adjust opacity to 200 and assign the material to the checkpoint. Open the prefab folder, but before creating the prefab, we need to add a checkpoint tag. After that, I will drag the checkpoint game object into the prefab folder to create prefab. Finally, we will need two scripts, checkpoint maker and checkpoint editor. Open checkpoint maker. The checkpoint maker script helps us place checkpoints along the path of waypoints. The tracker will move through the waypoints, and every time it reaches a distance, it places a checkpoint. First, we have the variables. Tracker will use the waypoints to go from one point to the next. This tracker will be a primitive capsule, and it will start from the first checkpoint. Each time a distance reached, the prefab template will be used to create a checkpoint. We use checkpoint distance to control how far the tracker has to travel before placing the next checkpoint. For example, if we set this to 5 units, every time the tracker moves 5 units, it will place a new checkpoint. Next, let's talk about the important methods, onEnable and onDisable. These two are pretty simple. They connect and disconnect the script from Unity Editor. Those methods will handle either to move the tracker or not, because we will be updating in edit mode. and not in play mode. Then we create checkpoints. In this method, it looks for a tracker game object, name it CP Manager. If it doesn't exist yet, the script creates one using a simple capsule shape as the tracker and removes the collider because we don't want it to interact with anything else. Then it sets the tracker at the position of the first checkpoint. It's like telling the tracker, hey, start right here. Finally, set a timer last checkpoint time so it knows when to place the next checkpoint and tell the script to start moving the tracker. Place checkpoint method now is where we actually create the checkpoint. Every time we call this, we instantiate a checkpoint using checkpoint prefab. So whatever the tracker position is at the moment, that's where the checkpoint will appear. Then we rename the checkpoints. It's just an easy way to keep track of how many checkpoints have been placed. Update continues. This method is what keeps everything moving exactly. We will update in edit mode. First, it checks if we should be moving or not. If is moving is false, the method won't do anything. So if the tracker is done moving, this method just stops working. Then it makes sure we have some waypoints. If no waypoints are set, it won't try to move the tracker and will show us a message to remind us to set them. You need to know that the tracker doesn't just move, it also needs to face the direction it's heading. So we use quaternions to smoothly rotate the tracker toward the next waypoint. After rotating, it moves forward toward the current waypoint using vector tree move towards, using a step to control how far it moves each frame, which is based on the speed. When the tracker gets close enough to the current waypoint, it's time to move to the next one. So the script checks if a tracker has reached the waypoint using vector distance. Once it's close enough, it updates the next waypoint in the list. Then, as the tracker moves, the script checks if it's time to place a new checkpoint. This is done by comparing the current time with the last checkpoint time. When enough time has passed, the script calls place checkpoint to create a new checkpoint. Then we move to the checkpoint editor script. Simply, this script will add a button in the inspector for the checkpoint maker. Whenever this button is clicked, checkpoint method in checkpoint maker will be called. Then we ensure changes are saved, making it a convenient tool for creating checkpoints without running the game. That's it. Head back to Unity. First of all, lock the game object and then assign first checkpoint and the prefab. Next, select all the waypoints and assign them. Also, change distance to 1. This way, checkpoints won't be far from each other. Now click Create Checkpoints. And it's important to keep the CP Manager selected to create checkpoints. Then, all waypoints will be created automatically until it reaches the last checkpoint. Once all checkpoints created, you can delete CP Manager game object and remove or disable the checkpoint maker. Thank you for following along. and stay tuned for next part. Also, if you would like to get access to these scripts and more, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon page. Thank you for watching.